Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we have a brand new product, tear resistant tissue. It's like rice paper, it's like tissue paper, it's like napkins, it's great for decoupaging, and right now at the time of videos it's only available at Ninny's Napkins. Now this, while it says tissue, it is more like interfacing that you sew. It's a material and you can't rip it up and down. You can tear it sideways. Now when you are using a new product, what we need to do is figure out the qualities and make them work in our project. Now if you are using this for decoupage, there is a video that Nicole has set up at Ninny's Napkins on showing how that works. I want to figure out how to use these in my mixed media, in my art journal. And you can see some of the patterns that I have. There are over 50 different designs. They are available in 3 different sizes. The thing that I like about them is they are very sturdy, whereas a napkin deteriorates very quickly when it gets wet. Sometimes tissue paper does. This does not. You can remove it, you can reapply it. It doesn't tear, it takes a beating. And in this video, that's what I'm going to show you. I'm putting it through the paces of some typical art journaling, mixed media type of activities to see what works, what doesn't work. And I will point out the things that I like about it and the things that, while I'm not saying I don't like about it, but the implications for use. Because every product you have to use a little bit differently to maximize the good qualities. I will put a link in the description box below to Ninny's Napkins, and you can go check out all the various designs. There are focal images, there are background designs, and if you're a decoupager, you're definitely going to want to check this out. And if you're a mixed media artist, do art journaling, you're definitely going to want to keep watching on my channel because I'm going to do other projects using this new product. So I'm going to use this one. This is a medium size and it's roughly about 8.5 by 11. Those aren't precise measurements. Nicole has those on her site. Again, with Ninny's Napkins, there is a discount code in the description box. And if you use that code, you can get a percentage off your purchases. And she does ship internationally. Anyways, let's get on with the project. As I said, this is more like material. It's sturdier than rice paper, and it doesn't deteriorate or weaken when it gets wet. So I'm loving this sunflower, sunrise, sunset picture. And I'm going to put it on an art journal cover. But I noticed that this has a wrinkle in it. So while I'm pretty sure as soon as I put the wet medium on it, the matte medium to glue it down, it would come off, I decided to see if it will come out. The wrinkle comes out when I iron it. And I just have this on medium heat, no steam, and just it comes off really quickly. So don't panic if yours has a wrinkle in it. You can easily iron that out. Now, I cut it with scissors earlier, and it's very sturdy, unlike tissue paper or napkins. But I thought, maybe, how does it work with the X-Acto knife? I thought maybe it would tear, but this works so sweet. I'm using a straight edge metal ruler. I line it up, use the cutting board, and it comes off, and you get a perfect straight edge. Now, because you can't tear this and get those softer edges, that implies that we need to treat them differently. So here I'm avoiding all of that because I'm basically using this as an Insta background. I am going to add some texture. I am going to add some stamping, some pattern, some other mixed media art journal techniques. But I'm primarily using it in its entirety. In future videos, I will cut out some of the focal images. Now here you'll see I have the coils on the side, or where the coils will go for the cover of this journal cover. I'm going to move it aside. So we are going to deal with that straight edge. So you're going to get a little bit of information there on how to deal with the straight edge. Now, I thought it would be really nice to use this Fanflower stencil from the Crafter's Workshop underneath this stencil. It kind of looks like a sunrise, sunset, looks like the sunflower. So I want to put texture paste underneath it because I'm thinking this material is going to soak in and press down, and I'm going to have the texture from underneath. So I'm using TCW's modeling paste, and this is also available at Ninny's Napkins. And I'm going to apply it straight onto the gessoed journal cover. And I gessoed it because I wanted to get rid, it was blue, and I don't want that. I want the colors of my tear-resistant fabric or tissue to stay true. So applying a nice even coat with the key card to the cover. And I'm going to lift this up and you'll be able to see that it has been texturized. I'm just cleaning up some that little parts that I don't want. And there is the texture for the middle of my cover. So once that's dry, I use this word stamp from Stamperia. It is also available at Ninny's Napkins, and I stamped on it. I wanted to see how much of this stamping shows through. Now you can see when it's dry that it is going to come through. And you'll see once I glue that down how much it is. Now this middle part where I did some stamping, I don't like the look of it when I put the tissue on. So I'm just taking some gesso and knocking that back. We know that tissue paper goes translucent when wet. We know that napkin does. I wanted to see how this tear-resistant tissue does. I'm just lining it up, and I'm going to use some fluid matte medium, and I'm going to get quite a bit on here. I want a good soaking of it underneath, and then I'm going to put the tear-resistant tissue on top and get it all perfectly aligned. I want it lined up to the top. I will have some excess at the bottom. So I put it down, it's not quite where I want it, and very quickly I can start moving it around. Now you couldn't do this with a napkin. Once the napkin's down, if you lift it up, it's probably going to rip. Tissue paper, depending on the tissue paper, you might have the same experience. Here, I am going fairly roughly over this because I want to test out this tear-resistant paper to see, or tear-resistant tissue, to see how it works. Here, I'm really rubbing and pushing it into the modeling paste that I have under. I want that texture from the modeling paste to show through on the front, and while wet, it's not really doing that, but it does as it dries. So make sure if you put modeling paste underneath, Maybe don't use one as fine as what I used, because I think that was part of the user error on my part. And part of it was that it showed up more as it completely dried. So once that's dry, I am cutting off the excess by turning it down and using my X-Acto knife. Make sure you got a sharp blade and just cut off the excess. Now these little bits, I'm of course not going to throw them out. This could make a bookmark, it can be on an ATC, it can just go on, add a little something something for another art journal page. So it's going into my stash. Then I'm just checking to make sure everything is glued down, and I'll just re-adhere any places where I didn't get enough of the fluid matte medium. And you would notice that I did put a good coat of the fluid matte medium on top to seal it. So I put it underneath and I put it on top. And the reason I put it on top was that I wanted to make the surface non-porous, because I'm adding color here. And if I don't like what I add on different layers, I will have the luxury of being able to take a baby wipe and wipe it off. If I don't, it is material-like and it soaks in. I think I could have done even a better job of making a good coat on top of it. And next time, I think I'm going to use clear gesso on top after it's glued down to really make the surface non-porous. Now this has a different texture than rice paper. It has a different texture than tissue paper or napkin. It looks like material, and I love that, especially in the use of here on a cover. So that is a positive quality. One, you can move it around. And here I'm rubbing it, I'm adding more paint. If I did that with a napkin that I glued down, I would rip it. It would get wet again and it would eventually rip. And I've done that. So here I'm colorizing the spine because that's white. So I'm kind of mixing the colors to match the pattern and the design. And I'm also adding color to the tear-resistant tissue as well. Now you could have left the colors as they were. I just wanted to bump it up a little bit more, make the teal a little bit brighter, make the orange a little bit brighter, and also knock back some of the stamping that's there. So sometimes I'm putting a little bit of white gesso, sometimes I'm coming in with the teal or orange or yellow. But this is what I do in my art journal, on my mixed media pieces. So I wanted to put this product through that same test. Now, because it's material, there are fibers there. And in some of the close-ups at the end, you will see those fibers show up. I like that look. So again, you have to embrace the qualities of the product. It's different than other products, but different doesn't mean bad. And I was really rubbing on some of these parts to kind of get those fibers to come out because I wanted to test it for you. So if you don't like the look of those fibers coming out and the fabric, then you need to be a little bit more gentle, as you would with napkin or tissue paper. Now here I'm just rubbing the paint over that textured area. I want that textured pattern from the Fanflower stencil to stand out. I want to see that sunflower or sunrise in the middle. So I'm going to do different things, rubbing the orange on it and something coming up to make that come out even more. And I'm continuing to just brighten the colors. And as I brighten those colors, you'll see that that word stamp gets pushed back. I don't want that as much up front. So I decided, well, maybe the Inktense blocks would work. Again, these are permanent once dry, so I'm just looking for the teal color. And again, you need, when you're applying it, it goes on differently than when if this was just paper. And here's where I'm thinking that if I had done a coat of white or clear gesso, it would have sealed it and the paint would have gone on, or the Inktense block would have gone on in a different way. Here, you really see the material, the fibers showing up. I'm adding some white gesso and then some more color, just tweaking and playing with the color, making it my own. I edged with black acrylic paint as I frame every art journal page and all my mixed media pieces. Then I have the black on the sponge and I'm just lightly rubbing that over top of that flat Fanflower modeling paste that is underneath. And you can see how it's bringing it up that ever so slightly. One, the black is making it stand out a little bit, but also by now it's completely dry and it kind of sucked it down and tighter around the modeling paste. Does that make sense? But there's very definitely texture that you can see on there. And because here when I'm wiping some of the paint off, and I can do that because I put a good coat of the matte medium on there. As I'm doing this cover, I'm, thinking, am I happy with it? And so sometimes I'm coming back and I'm revisiting it, adding more color. It's a process, and you do the next step and then you think, okay. So sometimes you go back and redo something because you decided that that's what you want to do. So it's not always a straight line. So I'm really liking that texture paste underneath. I'm adding some of these sun rays back onto this just by using my shading technique. Kind of erase some of it. I thought it was a good idea, right? All your ideas aren't winners. And usually a baby wipe gets rid of them. So I'm just adding more color, mixing the orange and the yellow oxide. Remember, the tear-resistant tissue in this case, that is just the jump start. That is the first layer. That gave us the color scheme, that gave us the theme with sunflowers, but you can deviate from that as much or as little as you like. Then because this is a cover and because it's me, I want to splatter it with gold paint. Now, remember, this is more like fabric, and it has texture to the fabric, and so some of the splatters wick out, and you see it more when I splatter with black later on, and I will point that out. Again, that is a characteristic of this product. If you don't like that, how it wicks out, then you don't use it. I decided I wanted to make this a little bit darker in the center, so I'm using my Inktense blocks and just painting out the center. Just to make them a little darker, make them stand out. I needed a little more contrast in this piece. I'm adding my sentiment, and I decide that I'm going to use my block stamps, and I'm just stamping out the sentiment with the archival ink very quickly. I don't need this to be perfect. This is just giving me the words that I can then play with the placement on the page. I mean, if you know where it is and you want to just freestyle it, you could just stamp it right on there, although I'm going to stamp with acrylic paint, not archival ink. So where do I want to put this? I'm just going to audition a few places, a few ideas. And I think I'm going to go around that sun on that orange part. But because I'm going around that, I'm just going to help myself out. I'm going to cut the words apart, cut all the letters so they're separate. That way I can get a better idea of where I want to place them. And that's just going to guide my stamping. And again, if you don't need to do this, skip this step. Just showing you an option. I'm loving those colors, and those colors pop because it is a winning color combination. Teal and orange and yellow. I mean, they're across from each other on the color wheel. So this is black archival or black acrylic ink, and I'm just spreading it on my glass table and tapping the wooden stamp in there and then stamping. And I'm leaving all the letters on there to guide my placement, letter by letter. At the end, I've got close-ups of the finished project. If you saw one of the tear-resistant tissues at the beginning and you'd really like me to do that one sooner than later, put that in the comment section below. And definitely check out Nicole's video that she made where she's using that tear-resistant tissue to decoupage onto a box. She shows the steps of that. I'm cleaning my stamps. I'm wiping off the acrylic paint after I stamp with it. I want to keep my stamps as neat as tidy as I can. I'm loving how this looks. I wanted to make it a little bit darker, so I'm grabbing my liner brush and just using some watered down, a little bit watered down, thinned down, black acrylic paint, and I'm just painting this out. The 3 sizes that the tear-resistant tissue comes in gives you a chance to get that pattern to match the perfect size of what you art journal or your mixed media pieces. So pay attention to the sizes so you get a match to your project. Loving the look. Decide I need to put a little bit more black on there, but as a subtle level, so I'm going to splatter with the black. And again, I'm noticing that because it's material, it's wicking out differently than when it hits paper. Kind of similar to when I do it on napkin as well. Sometimes that happens. And I'm pointing this out not because I'm unhappy with it, but I just want you to know. If you look really close in the close-ups where the Fanflower is, you're going to see the fibers of the material that have shown up. In part, that's because I really worked that area and I rubbed, so I think I broke some of the fibers, but I really like that texture. Now this is a cover of an art journal, so I'm going to put a coat of Minwax polyacrylic varnish on. There you can see it's kind of wicked out a little bit. So I'll put a couple coats of the Minwax polyacrylic varnish. Love the feel of the material, the look of the material. It gives a very distinct look that I wouldn't get if I had used any other product. So thank you for joining me. Enjoy the close-ups. Now go and create joy.